morning. I just dropped off my son again. Today, we're going to be talking about NGSS, a retrospective. So, first to qualify myself, I was a science teacher of 10 years. My credentialing program and the few classes I took through college were in NGSS. I was on the NGSS task force for my district for quite some years, in curriculum adoption 3 times for NGSS. I was an NGSS state trainer 3 times, 1 in person, 2 virtual, 1 in doing the rollouts. I presented at several conferences for NGSS. I ran NGSS workshops, did NGSS leadership and teacher training throughout my career. And we're talking 8+ years of my 10-year career teaching. So, NGSS. Personally, it was perfect for me, but it's a lot. So, let me go and start from the beginning of my career and sort of how I approached NGSS and sort of what it meant to me. My education was very much drill and kill, I do, we do, you do, and very uninspiring for myself in particular. And that's not from a teacher side, that's from a student side. With the I do, we do, you do, lecture, direct instruction, demo, prescribed worksheets, school was just about plug-in chugging, doing what I was told, compliance, listening to what the teacher said, modeled, and then teaching myself everything at home that I didn't understand to fill in the gaps. There was no real purpose that I could really see. I mean, I didn't see how it translated to me becoming a more well-developed individual. And that's sort of where I built a negative perception of education as a student. Now, flash forward to me becoming a teacher. NGSS sort of sat there as a way for me to justify to students that everything we're going to do is going to transcend into you going into engineering, into the fields that you want to go into. Is going to develop your skills more diversely and broadly. It's not to say that teaching prior was bad. I've heard the cyclical, it comes in waves. I've heard all of the arguments, but NGSS really was broken down in a way where beforehand it was 90% content, 10% other things. And I know this because my first year teaching I did this. And I got great results with direct instruction, drill and kill. Did a lot of labs also, but they were very prescribed labs. There wasn't a lot of creativity, but I was a raw, sage on the stage, jester and clown in front of the classroom. I even used puppets for my first year teaching chemistry. Had Lithium the lion and Fluorine the fish. What I found, though, is that although I had students performing very well in that course, I didn't feel like I was transformative when it came to their lives and skill sets and where they were going next, which was college. And in college, they're on their own, and the same formula that we are applying in high school, or was applied to me in high school, or I was applying my first year teaching, didn't directly correlate to success at a high-level university, at a research university. You're in a lecture hall of 200 kids, and you're going to have a teacher that you may understand or not because of the distance, because of the language barrier, because of whatever it might be, and you have to succeed. So how do you succeed? You make study groups. You research. You teach yourself, you think of it in different manners, you create visuals for yourself, you make study guides for yourself. Like, you're engaging in, quite frankly, the scientific process to understand what the heck was taught to you to get by with a decent grade. And I think that skill is not there when you just do the traditional teaching. And so what I saw, and I felt myself, is that when you transition to college, there's a huge shock. And that shock comes from, like, genuinely just not being prepared for college. You're not prepared to go above and beyond to pass a test, to beat the curve. You're not prepared to be successful in those environments. Now, I would argue that you would be if you were in a high-performing school district. Unlike where I taught an urban education for the last 10 years, and I went to a high-performing school district, so I can speak for myself here. The difference is, if you're in a high-performing school district, is if you're stuck or you're going to get a B or a C, your parents throw everything at the wall for you, your peers you see throwing everything at the wall to fight for their grades to go up, and you have this whole support community that gets together to make sense of the obscurity and be successful, whether it be through tutoring, academic coaching, whether it be through them doing study groups, meeting up with friends after school to study, where those things just don't occur in a urban low-income education environment. So you'd have students that are successful and, oh, I'm used to this because they had hard teachers in high school, and the whole community banded together, and the families banded together, and the parents banded together to all figure out how to achieve and do it. So where does NGSS come in with this? NGSS for myself came in because it really said, let's take a step back from the content. And I think that's the most important thing. If we do content all day, there's no time to learn anything else. And so NGSS broke it down into three things: the discipline core ideas, the science engineering practice, and the cross-cutting concepts. And it says, listen, we need to have equality between these two things and what we're emphasizing and doing within our classroom. You're not just sitting there memorizing concepts and doing rote practice problems. Instead, we're going to make this educational experience well-rounded, where in the classroom with that teacher in that subject, you're going to learn how to present. We're going to make sure you can collaborate effectively. We're going to really dial into research. We're going to really dial into you creating your own lab and figuring out procedures, which translates directly to, if you don't know how to do something, figure out how to create a process for it, how to make a study group, how to research or study something where you didn't get all the content through the lecture effectively, how to break down text that is assigned to you for reading effectively, or find new text because the textbook the teacher gave you wasn't good enough. I had that case at UCI. I was a chemistry major and I had to buy other textbooks because I knew that the textbook I have wasn't enough to teach me what I needed to know. So really, I thought it was like taking a step away from 90% content, 10% everything else, to really 33% content, 66% the skills, the processes, the patterns that'll help you be successful. So from day one, I was sort of sold on that. And what I've seen, and like this is sort of, I guess, the big, I don't know if it's the big takeaway, but the takeaway that I sort of saw was that a lot of people struggled with removing content. And I felt like it's a lot in the sense that I feel like some classes were very NGSS without ever switching to NGSS. I could come in there and I could label all the NGSS they're doing. Some classrooms were not. good teaching is still good teaching. But I feel like in a lot of ways, NGSS gave for myself validity as I went on and emphasized skills and project-based learning and open inquiry labs, and as I move my students to the pilot seat, that I don't believe, with the exception of like Pogles, which are awful for their own reason, I'm not going to go into right now. I'm not going to say they're awful. They're awful if used incorrectly. But I feel like it just really enabled you to, and forced you to really think about how you were developing a well-rounded student. And for the kids who only received their public education and after school learning stopped or stops, it was a game changer for, and it still is a game changer for. And the teachers who didn't really want to look at it, I don't blame necessarily. It's hard to let go of content and associate rigor with content. But I don't know. I think that for me, rigor is in those skills, because the students I worked with, honestly, I would give a basic research assignment and it would take them 3 class periods to complete, like a research lab activity at the start of the year, and if I gave something similar by the end, it'd take them like 20 minutes. So we're talking about like 2.5 hours to 20 minutes. And that shows how needing students are of stuff that's like more well-rounded to develop them as they move forward. I don't know. This is just Cartalk though. I'm gonna go back, and I think that this is something that I'm gonna refine. I'll probably make into a full-length video, edit it, sat down, talking points, slides, and there's a lot to be tackled here, but in a nutshell, I think I've got my points across. So hope you have a wonderful day, and take care. If you have questions, ask them in the comments. I'll answer them, especially regarding this topic. Definitely something I was really passionate about.